What's going on, everybody? Andrew Tucker, and welcome to Andrew Tucker World. Today is a very sad day. You know, we lost today. We lost one of the legends, one of the greats to ever step in the ring. One of the greats, one of the greatest fighters of all time. One of the greatest was a legend. A legend was a legend, and will forever be a legend. You know, was an amazing fighter. I remember watching old tapes. You know, my dad had old tapes. You know, of watching Marvin Hagler. You know, watching old tapes of Marvin Hagler as a kid, a kid up until from a young kid up until a teenager. You know, watching old films of Marvin Hagler. You know what I mean? And he will be remembered forever. He will be remembered forever. He was a legend. Like I said, and I'm gonna say it again. One of the greatest fighters of all time. You know, fights. You know, the fight between him and Tommy Hearns. The fight between him and Sugar Ray Leonard. You know, the fight between him and Roberto Duran. You know, I remember when he beat Tony Simpson. You know, certain fights that I remember. You know, having old footage of my dad. You know, we watching these fights, having old footage of the legend. You know, and there's a lot of other fights I remember. You know, I remember a lot of his TKO victories, a lot of his KO wins, and you know, he was a legend. You know, he was a legend. One of the greatest, like I said, one of the greatest fighters. One of the greatest fighters of all time. One of the best fighters, pound for pound. You know, a legend. You know, one of the best fighters, you know, in the world. Was a gladiator. He was a warrior. And Marvelous Marvin Hagler will be missed. You know, he was an American. He was an American former professional boxer and a film actor who competed in boxing from 1973 to 1987. He reigned as undisputed middleweight champion from 1980 to 1987, making 12 successful defenses of his title, and holds the highest knockout percentage of all undisputed middleweight champions. And I'm talking about at the time at 78%, while also holding the third longest unified championship reign in boxing history. We're talking about the marvelous Marvin Hagler. And also 12 consecutive defenses at 6 years and 7 months. His reign as undisputed middleweight champion is the second longest of the last century, behind only Tony Zell, whose reign included several years of inactivity during his service in World War II in 1982. Marvin Hagler was a legend, was a warrior, was a gladiator, very entertaining fighter. If you really wanted entertainment when it came to boxing, if you really want to go back and watch great fights, if you really want to go back and watch one of the best fighters to ever do it, then you would have to go back and watch Marvelous Marvin Hagler, because he was just so entertaining to watch. He was just one of those fighters that you appreciate, that you love to watch, because he's a warrior, a gladiator, one of the toughest, one of the most skilled, one of the most toughest fighters to ever step in the ring. Marvelous Marvin Hagler is an inductee of the International Boxing Hall of Fame and the World Boxing Hall of Fame. He was named Fighter of the Decade in the 1980s by Boxing Illustrated magazine, and twice named Fighter of the Year by the Ring magazine and the Boxing Writers Association of America in 2001 and 2004. The Ring named him the fourth greatest middleweight of all time. In 2002, named him the 17th greatest fighter of the past 80 years. The International Boxing Research Organization rates Hagler as the 6th greatest middleweight of all time, while BoxRec rates him the 29th greatest boxer of all time, pound for pound. Many analysts and boxing writers consider Hagler to have one of the most durable chins in boxing history, having been knocked down only once during the entire professional career, and the scored knockdown is still being disputed. But I'm gonna tell you like this here: he was one of the greatest fighters to ever step in the ring, one of the greatest fighters to ever do it. You know, I've learned a lot from Marvelous Marvin Hagler. I learned a lot from him. You know, he experienced a lot, been through a lot. But the thing is, other than skill, other than being tough and dangerous, he also had a lot of heart and was a great leader, a warrior, and a gladiator. And I will always love you, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. I will always love you, and I will never forget you. I will never forget you. One of the best fighters to ever do it. One of the greatest of all time. One of the GOATs. I love you and I'm gonna miss you, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Prayers go out to his family, friends and family. I was gonna go live. You know, we got some fights tonight. I might still go live, but right now it's really hard for me to go live because right now I'm sad. I'm really sad that we lost one of the best fighters who ever lived. You know, I know we're not here to stay. But you know, he was tough, man. He was tough. You know, he was tough. He was tough, and I'm gonna really miss him. You know, rest in paradise, the great, marvelous Marvin Hagler. Andrew Tucker World, and I'm out.